Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. As usual, I am Brandon. Matt likes to call me the Moondog, but even when I was at the beautiful University of Oregon in Eugene, they did not call me that. But sure, whatever. I'm here with my good friend Matt Brock, otherwise known as Rusty the Reseller, and we are this is incredibly exciting, Mary. I didn't even tell you this in pre-production, but you are our very first guest.
Ooh.
We have been doing this show for a little less than a year, and it has grown. It has been so much fun. It has been growing. I get lots and lots of emails. But you are the very first guest we've ever had on the show. So we're heading into uncharted territory. This is Mary Bicknell. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And
yes.
Mary, I would love it if you would introduce yourself and then give us just a real quick background on how you got connected to Matt, and then we'll kind of launch into the conversation for there. Sound good?
Sounds great. So
All
hi,
right.
everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. I didn't know I was the first guest. Oh my God. So now I'm like freaking out nervous. No, I'm totally not. I'm super stoked to be here. So I was a clinical social worker, and now I'm a business consultant for small businesses, mostly female-owned businesses. And I've been doing that for, 15 years in that capacity. But I've been an entrepreneur forever. And that is something that, is and how I met Matt online, so to speak. And that really influenced me having my own business and teaching my daughter how to have an eBay business, so sell online. So that was part of why I started following you. And yeah, here we are today.
And you also have a podcast.
I have a podcast called Midlife, Bold Life.
I love that. And it's mostly geared towards women. I actually stalked you a little bit, Mary, because I was like, ooh, I love other podcasters.
That's what he does.
And that's what I do. That's what I do. But you've been doing it for a while. It's not like you just started last week. You've been podcasting for a long time. There's a lot of people that start, and the average tenure of a podcast is 6 shows. You are, I think, at somewhere like 150.
150, and we're getting ready to launch this year. So I've had the fortunate opportunity to take some time off this past year in 2024. Our daughter, her name's River, she went to college. And so I just, frankly, I took time off, and my husband has a business, and I was able to kind of put a pin in thing and reevaluate. And this is part of, any entrepreneurial's journey, right? Is that we reevaluate a little. So I've stepped back a little, and I'm psyched to get back into 2025, and specifically about people in midlife. I mean, we have so many opportunities, and that's what I hope we're really going to talk about today. But there's so many opportunities, even when it feels like there's not. There's so many opportunities for people to be able to create a business, even if it's something on the side, even if it's not replacing everything. There's so many opportunities that we have online to meet people, to sell things, to share our expertise. And obviously that's why I'm here today, because that's how I ran into Matt. So 2 years ago, I wanted to teach our daughter River, because even though she is going to school to be a chemical engineer, I'm still like, you need to know how to make money for yourself. And so we started looking into, I was like, you're going to have an eBay business. And so of course I went online, I wanted to learn how to do some things, and I ran into Matt, of course, Rusty, right? And my God, so here's the story about that. So I was just like telling my husband, oh my God, I found this guy online, and you should hear him. He sounds so great. And he lives outside of Asheville, and blah, blah, blah. And then one day you were doing, and maybe it was, I was watching the both of you actually. And Matt, you showed up like your real self.
Mm-hmm.
And I was freaking floored. I mean, I was so literally shocked that I told my friends, I was like, you're never going to believe this, because I had been watching and following and implementing. So thank you very much. You've helped me make plenty of money with my eBay business, which I have since closed, since River's off to college now. And, but I was just like, oh Lord. And then of course, as a business woman and as a marketer, I was like, that is so good. That persona, it's engaging. It hooked me in. And then of course, your teaching skill is fantastic.
Well,
before you go on, Matt, I want to say just really quickly, Mary, what you said about the midlife business structure.
Yeah.
It's Matt's he's literally running around and he's hustling and just doing stuff. But if I had $1 for every time I sit down with my friends, I'm a little bit older than Matt. All my friends that I graduated with from the University of Oregon, go Ducks. Every one of them, I mean, man and woman, is like, man, when you get older, it is harder and harder to like keep a job. People that are in the midlife are just not as desirable, and I think it's really unfortunate. So I really want to say I really appreciate you saying that and doing what you're doing, because I think there is more to be done after 45 or 50 or whatever. You don't need to just say, oh, well, that's it, I'm gonna roll up shop and be done with it. But anyway, I wanted to get that out there because I think what you're doing is really important.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, the biggest shock here is that actually I'm from the UK. And so this whole thing with the Rusty and all that is,
God, that would be great.
It's a double surprise.
That would be so awesome.
It's like, it just never, you don't know who the real me is. It's
That's
just,
That's funny.
no, that's really funny for me to hear. But I'm so excited. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time, because I know you're a businesswoman, you're a podcaster. We're in the right spot here because you have way more experience doing this stuff than I do. So it makes sense that I'm interviewing you on here, even though you found me through this other thing, and you were smart to start teaching her, because I'm pretty sure that chemical engineers don't make any kind of money. Can you fact check me on that, Brandon? I'm just kidding. No, she'll do fine. But that's awesome.
She probably was in a lot of remedial classes, I'm assuming.
She's so smart. Remember, I'm the therapist, the coach, the hugger,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And my husband and her, they've been talking math since she was little. And I'm not one of those women who are like, I don't know math, because that's dumb, I think. Because if you know 1 + 1 is 2, and you got to know money. But I don't even know what they're talking about. But to the point, yes, she's going to be fine.
Well, that's awesome that you're teaching her that side thing, and that's something we preach here too, is that you don't have to do this full time. If you just know some basic principles and you know how to research things, you can make money. People have stuff at their house. They don't have to really even go anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to me that we both have a similar background in mental health. It's very strange and we both jumped ship. So my first question to you is, why did you move from mental health into what you're doing now?
It's funny. I also have a degree in interior design. So people have, it does sound like I'm jumping, but to me, it's actually the same mental process.
Mm-hmm.
You have a problem with all these different facets, and the way my brain works is I'm able to find the quickest path to cash, or the master treatment plan, or what solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
But specifically to mental health, one of the things that is, I don't like to be told what to do. And in the mental health industry, if you have insurance, or you're regulated by insurance, those kind of things, you're dictated. And I don't want to be dictated to by anyhow. And I also didn't want to continue to participate in an industry that, mandates almost diagnoses. I think that sometimes the truth is just shit is hard, and that doesn't warrant a diagnosis. And sometimes 45 minutes is not enough. In my business, I love mindset and how we think about things and all that. And I like doing, a full day to kick off working with someone, because you go deep instead of hey, how was your weekend? And then you get into the thick quote, and I'm air quoting for everybody, into the therapy. And it just wasn't as rewarding. Although I have to acknowledge, I worked in every facet of social work and mental health, numerous psych units. So it's fascinating to me. But then, if you will, Sally Jane, run-of-the-mill mental health, I'm just I wanted to work with women and help them. First of all, I became a coach and started doing, hi, I'm Mary Bicknell, I'm the relationship tour guide. And I wanted to help women be in great, fantastic relationships. I'm happily married, even 20 years later, we're still into each other. But then it got to the point where their financial issues made them feel trapped. And because I have a business, I love business, I wanted to be able to put these two things together. So really the biggest reason I got out of mental health was not being dictated to. That's the short answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on the 20 years of marriage. I celebrated that last month myself. Mary, are you a firstborn child?
Child.
You're an only child. Okay. I only ask that because I don't like to be told what to do is very typical of firstborn children.
Yeah.
Only children, because I have
only
one of
children,
those as well.
For sure.
Hey, before you launch onto that, Matt, I want to say, part of the audience or a big part of our audience, are people just like you that say, hey, I want to do my own thing. And I don't, it is, none of us are going to lie. We all three work for ourselves. It's not easy.
No.
There are times where you're like, oh, I got to go in at 10 o'clock and I got to work on something. But there is something intrinsically amazing about being able to do your own thing. And so that's a big, I just wanted to point, I think what you said is really critically important for anyone to decide to do any business, that you get, there's pros and there's cons, but I think there's way more pros.
So many more pros.
And I would imagine the mental health background helps you simply with relating to people and kind of knowing the right questions to ask, figuring out what's going on with them so that you can kind of move through some of the junk and kind of get to the main thing that they're looking for. What would you say that the biggest barrier to entry is for people that you speak with about business, people who are interested but just haven't pulled the trigger? What is it that prevents them, or what things prevent them from jumping in?
The thing that drives me, that thing that makes me get out of bed every morning, is that they are afraid. And this is what I want to shout from the rooftops, is like, there's no reason to be afraid, and here's the truth. As we get older, we have more hesitancy for trying things that are new, unless that's just part of like our personal identity. And so if you've been indoctrinated, or if you've had a job, the truth of the matter, just what you're saying, Brandon, the truth of the is going from employee to an entrepreneur. That's a bridge. That is not easy. But here's the reality, is like, it is so worth it. My worst day as a business owner, my best day as a therapist it's so incompatible. It's not even in the same realm, but their fear of failure. There's really 5 things that I think that people have fear around, and I call them blind spots, but fear of success, fear of failure, right? I call it delusional denial. Like, everything's fine. Those are really the top 3. So if I had to pick one, it's really their fear of failure. That's it.
Let me, I'm going to put on my counselor hat here and say, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're talking about fear of failure, and some things are coming through my head. I imagine people listening to this are thinking, yeah, you just described me. So I'm thinking, maybe, what if I make a mistake? What if the mistake I make, what if I lose money somehow? What if my spouse or my significant other is ashamed or embarrassed by what I did? Or do these all sound like things you've heard? Are these all things that, okay. And what could you say, or is there something that you could say to people listening that might feel that way, to help them maybe find a different way of looking at that, or just a change of the way that you think about that process, so that you're not going to have so much anxiety before you take the first step?
First of all, I tell everyone, don't quit your job. So, continue to have financial resources coming in. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So that's first. So the second thing is, my brand is all about being bold, and bold stands for being a brave, outgoing leader, deciding to have whatever the hell I want whenever I want it. And so from living from a place like that, which is, you have to cultivate that, then you're willing to take some chances. So again, if you're not, don't quit your job, but about the fear of it. So then you have to kind of unpack that. Because when we look at like, what is fear of failure? You have to make these decisions like from your future self. Where would you think about like 5 years from now? Do you want to be able to look back and think, well, God, at least I did it. At least I ran that marathon. At least I climbed that mountain. Or do you want to look back and think, oh my God, I didn't do it and I have regret. And so I don't think that we think these things through enough about where will I be? Because the truth is, we're all busy, right? We're rushing through life. We got kids, we got marriages, we got jobs, we got all the things, the dog, and we don't pause to ask ourselves what we really want. And I think that's the very first thing that we need to do, is ask, what do I really want? And most of the time when I ask my clients, like, well, tell me the last time you had fun. Tell me what you really dream about. Tell me what you want. A lot of times people, they say they don't know anymore. And because maybe they had a dream and they got laughed at, or maybe their sister's like, who do you think you are, wanting to have your own business, or whatever. And so that fear of failure puts us in a place of not listening to ourselves anymore. I want to say that everyone who's listening, if you trusted that you can follow through, if you trusted yourself that it's worth the journey to explore the possibility, just that in and of itself is worthy of a worthy goal.
What helped you get past that? Did you ever have, maybe your personality is not like that, but did you ever have a time when you felt worried about making a decision like that? Like, did you ever have a fear of failure, of
Oh my
making a
God, of course
decision? And
yes.
okay,
So that's the other thing. We have to look at other times in our lives where we've had success or had failure. I could look at relationships, right? I'm happily married 20 years, but I've had failed relationships where you get trapped and you think, I can't leave. Or jobs. Why would I leave this job? I mean, I had jobs that paid really well and I still, ugh. So the first thing to look at, I think, is to reconnect with your successes. One of the assignments I love to give people is write down 100 successes. And what I have found is most of us can say, like, I've got 3 degrees, I have, I have 2 homes, or whatever it is. They have all the accolades. And they get to around 24, 25, or 26, and they get stuck because they forget the small wins.
Mm.
And the more we train our brain to have cognitive bias toward our successes, the better. But to the point of failure, I failed plenty of times. And yeah, it's true that sometimes that stuff, I play that over and over in my mind. And when those moments come where I flopped, I'm a speaker, so I'm on stage and no one's like, oh my God, that was so great, Mary. Or I said something stupid or whatever. It's getting to the point where you are willing to have your own back. And I think that is, again, one of those things that we don't pause and do.
Well, I love that. The idea of focusing on successes, especially because I'm guilty of not giving myself credit maybe when it's due. I'm more down on myself. I think about my mistakes. By
Yeah.
the way, and I'm sure you know this, I'm sure better than I do, is that people who are successful in business will oftentimes say that they have made way more mistakes than the average person. And depending on how you look at it, if you're someone who does it through action or inaction, if you don't take that step later on, you're going to look at that inaction as a failure later on down the road. So making mistakes, failure is sort of a judgment call on an action, but mistakes or things not going the way that you want is just a part of life. And whether you take that step or not, you're going to make those. I think it's more a question of what do you do when you've made the mistake, or what do you do when you have that sense of failure? Does that stop you cold in your tracks, or is there something in in your ear, in your head, that tells you that it's okay? Back in the therapy world and days, we do what's the best thing that could happen and what's the worst thing that could happen? Let's say you make a mistake. Let's say you fail at your first attempt. What's the worst that could happen? Well, I won't be happy, or my spouse will think, and then you talk through that. And at the end of the day, it's not as much of a catastrophe as you build it up to be in your mind. Right? But the potential is really large there.
Yes.
And then if you're thinking about, let's say, starting a business, and it doesn't have to be reselling, but we are on a reselling podcast, something on the side. So you're not going all in. You're not saying, I'm going to quit that job. I'm going to start this. Oops, it didn't work. It's like, I'm going to build up. I think that anybody can do this. I really do. And it sounds like that's what you're saying as well, is that we all have it in us to do that one thing, but we just have to find a way to take that first step.
100%. And I think that's why finding you, Rusty, right, is looking to an expert, looking to someone who has walked the path and follow what they have to say. I mean, with you, I got out my little scratch test and the whole bit, right? And I loved one of the things that you said about and oh my God. So when I first started reselling, I was like, I love China. Oh my God. This is before I found you. I was like, I love China. So let me buy all this China. So I bought all this China. Do you know how hard that is? And of course you do know to ship that.
Yeah.
And then I heard you one day say something along the lines like, think about something they can just put in your pocket. And I was like, boom. And so the point is there's no lack of people being able to learn from someone. Whether they're hiring somebody like me as a business consultant or watching a YouTube channel or listening to a podcast, there's no shortage today in today's world with technology to be able to learn.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason not to try. There's literally no reason not to at least try, even if you don't tell anybody. You don't have to tell your judgy sister. You don't have to tell her that. You can Go
No, I
ahead.
mean, that's a great point. Yeah, and it's okay if you like China, and it's okay if you want to sell China, but you have to know the realities of what you're dealing with. Don't look past the obvious. Don't look past things just because you really want to do it. And for me, I don't personally collect things, and so the whole idea of going into the business I did was to make money for my family. It wasn't to collect things. So it doesn't matter to me if I care about the thing I'm selling or not. In fact, I'd rather not care about it because then there's no reason why I would want to somehow hold on to it.
Yes.
But it's just funny from meeting someone who actually found me that didn't know me and hearing kind of that you heard. It's just a really cool thing because that was what I wanted. I wanted people to learn and doing this and that. But let me tell you, what I did is completely opposite of what you're preaching. You're saying don't quit your job, and I didn't quit my job. I lost my job, and I had to start out doing it full time with no other income, which was horrible. And you know what? Listeners out there, I made so many mistakes the first several years. I'm 5 years in, I still make mistakes, fewer than before. I learned from them, but I didn't let it stop me. I had a family I had to provide for, so I couldn't stop. So I had some other drivers, but I love the idea of maybe this is just your thing. You're going to try it out. You don't have to preach it to the world. You don't want to be one of those people who says, I'm going to do a thing and never does it, or jumps in and then fails and everyone sees. If that's your fear, if your fear is people seeing you and the judgment from people, that is true of some people, but just do it a little on the side. Make some mistakes privately, learn from those mistakes. Keep doing it. You'll get better at it. I love it. Go ahead.
Can I add
Brandon?
something in here real
Yeah.
quick, Matt? One thing, Mary, I know you have a podcast, and I know you speak at a lot of different things, and I definitely cyberstalked you because I found you fascinating, and I love anybody who does podcasts. It's the same basic idea. It's like, hey, you know what? It's a little bit harder to start a podcast than starting an eBay business, but not much. You get a mic and you figure out some stuff and do some editing. What's really interesting to me, and if I had it to do all over again, I would find somebody like you that was doing podcasting to in a sense, you're a career coach and people, or a life coach. People always kind of look at that and go, oh, what? I'm like, no, man. You go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist because you need help. There's no shame in that. And I think the same exact thing stands for career and life coaches. So I'm a big proponent of that. Can you just talk a little bit about what you do? I know you do it specifically for women, but what things without giving away the whole business plan, but what things do you do? And then I want to hear about how you and sort of how we got connected, because I think that's a great story. So tell us a little bit about the career coaching or life coaching and sort of how that infuses your whole raison d'etre, if you will.
Yeah. So, and I don't label myself as far as a career coach or life coach, right? I mean, I know that we try and categorize ourselves, business consultant or what have you. And really what it is looking at and working with people, women. I mean, I have had male clients, but looking at their business or what kind of business they want or where they want to pivot, and to find out what are the hurdles, what's in the way, whether it's how you're thinking, whether it's just you don't know. I mean, that's the reality, right? I have all these degrees, and yet I didn't necessarily know how to have a podcast or an online business or go speaking. And so we invest all this time and money in our education and don't even think twice about it, but to learn a business skill. And so that's typically what it is. My clients are really great at what they do, whether they're therapists. I teach a lot of therapists how to have a coaching business because that skill is so transferable. And so, so many clients are so good at what they do, quote, in their business, but they don't necessarily have the business skill to get off that plateau. So they've hit a plateau, an income plateau, a marketing plateau, a mindset plateau, whatever. They're stuck. And so what we do is we look at what's in the way. And there's different things that we look at, whether it is the marketing, it is the selling. So many people are like, I hate to sell. And it's like, whether it's or whether it's the offer or whether it's just them. Charge more money. Anybody who's listening, and if you are a service-based provider, right off the bat, I would tell you the very first thing is charge more money. It's all this thinking stuff that gets in our way. And that's always what I work on first with clients. And then we analyze what are systems. I'm a social worker. I love a good system. I love systems. And so we look at how to simplify things, because most of the time when you don't know how to run a business, or you've just been in grind mode, you don't actually set some time aside to step back and to analyze what's actually working, what's not working. It's kind of exactly what Matt was saying. Like, you're going to fail at some stuff, but most people, this is what I have found, most people don't step back and look at what is actually working. For example, I have a new client and I said to her, like, where are your clients coming from? And she's like, I don't really know. And I'm like, well, that's not a good answer. We need to evaluate things. And most of us like our work, right? We like to go on the hunt for the eBay stuff or whatever we want to sell, or we love working with our clients. But the part that most of us don't love, candidly, is the actual engine of the business. And so that's what I help my clients do so that they make more money and work less. Because I'm all about, like, make as much money as you want, and that's great. But if you don't have any time to enjoy life, like, what's the point?
Yeah, and it goes to the thing too. You made a really good point there, and I think of it. All three of us own our own little businesses. Sometimes we try to do more than what we really should be doing. You just said there's things we love to do, and I know for myself that I love to edit and do work in audio and everything, but there are some parts of my business that I don't really love.
Yes.
And I often will shop those out. I will go find a person like you to say, hey, I'm really struggling with where do my customers come from? Can you please tell me how to do that? I think so many times people think they've got to know everything, and they simply do not. Have you found that to be your experience with, I know you say predominantly women, but I'm assuming you're working with people that are starting businesses. What would you say is the biggest problem they have when they get started?
Yeah. One is thinking that they need to do it all themselves, but that doesn't change for a long time, right? Most of us, first of all, if you are somebody who likes to be in control, I want to suggest again that you start your own business even on the side, right? Because that's part of it. And we do have a hard time delegating. We do have a hard time letting go, but it doesn't change necessarily for a long time. Most of us, I like to think of it, are the finder, minder, and grinder, right? We're the finder of the clients, we're the grinder of the work, and we're minding the store. But most of us don't like to farm stuff out because we think that we can do it better than anybody else. Or they forget the return on investment, the ROI on hiring somebody. So it's just like, why would you not hire somebody, a VA, a virtual assistant, someone to come in and alleviate you of doing the crap that you don't like to do and pay them whatever it is, $20, $30 an hour, when you then can take that allotted time and like go make different money, or go like hang out with your kid or pet your dog or whatever. We're not taught that. We're taught so much, we're indoctrinated that we need to be the one to do it all. Like, no one's going to do it, our way. Or what I find that a lot of women have is they feel guilty asking for help. Even people, when I was a clinician, right? They're like, I finally came into therapy, even though this has been bothering me forever, because there's something intrinsically wrong. Sometimes people feel that if they ask for help, they see it as a point of weakness, as opposed to those of us who have wild success. We want to save time, and because time is life and time is money. And I would much rather invest in learning a skill instead of like trying to figure it all out myself.
Unfortunately, that is our society. We place value on independence.
Yes.
And we preach that the people who are the most successful are the self-made people, which, by the way, I don't think that actually exists.
I agree.
That, to ask, and it's funny that you say that about women, because I guess I would have assumed that maybe men would be, and maybe they are more culprits of that there's this like pride or something that they don't want to ask for help. I don't think, most people don't like to ask for help. But I also, and Brandon and I think are similar in the sense that we're more of community-based mindset, where we want to help other people, and it's great when other people are there to help, and that's how it's best to live together with other people. It doesn't mean that you can't have your own business and be independent in that way, but we don't know it all. And that's exactly why people come for your help, for your services, Mary, because they've got this hurdle that they're trying to get over. The guilt, man, that's a big thing. Does that seem to dissipate pretty quickly once they start talking with you, or does that continue to be a hurdle?
The guilt of
asking for help, or feeling like, or is it when they finally take that step? Maybe that's the biggest hurdle, is the guilt of feeling like they need to ask in the first place. Maybe you'd have more customers.
Yeah. So to your point about community, what I like to do is help people just like change. I think if I help people, they have a goal, and I think of it like a diamond, and my job is to like turn it so they can see different facets of it. And so I like to help them think differently about asking for help. So most of my clients, right, they want to help a lot of people. Right, we're helpers. We're like, I want to save the world. I mean, as a social worker going to school, I was like, I'm going to save the world. And then you get to the point where it's like you only have so many hours in a day. And so when I talk to clients, I help them think about the benefit of you delegating and asking for help is that you actually are creating a better opportunity for you to do better work in the world. And not just for serving more people, but also for your family. I think that is kind of one of the buttons I push with people to help them get over their guilt for asking for help. Is that my job, first of all, this is at least my philosophy, is that my job is to help my client and their family first. Even if they have a goal to save the world and end hunger for everybody and all that, that's great. But my job is to get them reconnected with themselves, what they want, and serving their family. Because I have found when they step back and they're like, yeah, I don't need to feel guilty asking for help. It gives me more time with my child, or charging more gives me more time. And when you have more time and you're less stressed, you show up in your best capacity, which, by the way, is exactly what Brandon was talking about, like loving the editing or whatever. We want to serve. And we want to serve our communities at our best capacity. And when you're dealing with all the little intricacies of, your business that you don't understand, or you're just endlessly scrolling to find the answer, or you just refuse to hire that housekeeper once a month or whatever it is, you're not serving your family first, but you're certainly not showing up at your best with your skill. And that is what I think is like a paradigm shift that needs to happen.
Well, that's a great segue because, number one, you kind of touched on what's known in the world of higher education, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you can't get your own needs met, it's really tough to meet others. So about, 3 months ago now, we got hit by Hurricane Helene. Now, you used to live in this area, Mary. You know what it's like. It's this beautiful mountain region where we're like, oh, the weather's perfect here. Well, we got hit by not just a hurricane, but tornadoes. It was bad. It's still bad when you go out there. And Matt, because Matt is, I know you only know Matt from this a little bit and from Cousin Rusty, but Matt has truly a massive heart and he cares about other people. Me, I'm just looking out for my own. But Matt is out there looking. And you, Mary, I would love to hear the story of how you decided to send some stuff to Matt and kind of what that looked like, because that's a really great story.
Thank you. Well, I felt so honored to be able to do that. And I was so happy that you asked and that you gave me an outlet to be able to contribute. So thank you so much for that. And,
I don't know if our listeners know yet exactly what happened. Could you start us from like, so you kind of mentioned you found the channel, the Rusty the Reseller channel on YouTube that I started.
Yes.
Take us from there. So you did that because you were trying to work with your daughter. Again, you're putting family, right? That was for family. And then what happened from that point to where we connected?
Yeah. So watching you and listening to you, and as I said, you're an excellent teacher. And then the connection because of being in North Carolina, right? The truth is there's a lot of catastrophes all over the place. But I've been to, Asheville. I owned property there. In fact, that's where I found out I was pregnant. I took a pregnancy test. I know that's TMI maybe, but still, I'm telling where
Tell
my
us
heart
more.
is, right? I mean, where my heart is, right?
Okay.
It's like we were going to live there. We were going to retire there. We were going to build our house outside of Brevard. And so when I saw you, I was like connected because I was like, oh, somebody gets me. That's kind of how I felt too. Like there's like beach people and then there's mountain people.
Yes.
Does that
100%.
So we're mountain people. And I was like, somebody gets it. I've been to that coffee shop and all of that. And so then of course, oh my God, when the hurricane happened, it was shocking because, well, first of all, it was catastrophic. But just watching the video and knowing that you have a heart, Matt, obviously you do. I've been watching you for, I don't even know how long now. And just hearing you talk. But then seeing the devastation, and it just makes me emotional even thinking about it. And watching the video, but hearing you. And then of course, seeing you, out and about and donating and I wasn't surprised. I have to be honest. I wasn't surprised because I already felt like I knew, I could read, I could feel that energy, even on YouTube, that that's who you are. And so when you mentioned, being able to donate, whether it is via, I think you had a GoFundMe account or actually sending things to you, I was like, oh my God, this is like a total answer to my prayer,
Mm.
since I knew I was closing down my business and I
Mhm.
had some boxes of some things that I'm like, I just didn't want to just give them
Yeah.
to the local place.
Right.
It just meant so much that I was able to box those things up. Also hoping that you weren't going to be like, "What's all this junk? Is this just
No, no.
leftover junk?"
There is no such thing as junk, Mary. Everything sells.
Yes. And so I was so fortunate for that opportunity. And I'm curious if you're still taking donations and whether or not people listening, whether that, they still have an opportunity to contribute. Because here's the thing, to the point about community. This was the other thing. I felt like I was part of your community, even if you didn't know me.
Mhm.
Even if I'd only maybe commented every now and again, because I know, being in an online business, there's so many people who are watching who will never comment,
Yeah.
never say a word.
Well,
And
Mary,
that's good.
yeah,
So,
Rusty's cousins know that they're his
yes.
cousins. They know who they are out there.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you said many kind things, and I very much appreciate it. And the fact that you were willing to send things to be a part of that relief effort it cannot be overstated. It's just very compassionate of you, and it's awesome. And I've been running that YouTube channel since 2021, and most people who run YouTube channels are doing it to earn revenue. That's why they do it. And you know what? That's why I started it initially, because I had started this reselling business and I thought, listen, I'm already doing this work. I might as well just film myself and maybe I can make some money. Little did I know that years later we would have this horrible hurricane, and all of a sudden now I find myself in this strange situation being connected to thousands of people across the globe. And I have never asked for money or donations or anything from anyone. I've never said, hey, pay for this extra subscription to get a whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That wasn't a part of my channel. Free education, that's what it was about. But when this happened, I it was still hard for me to do because people don't know me and I'm asking perfect strangers if they want to donate. However, I did have that platform, and I thought, if there is someone out there who wants to and is just looking for a place, and then they find me and they find a place, then great, because it's not for me, it's for my community. And so what you have done, Mary, and what several other people have done, either donating money or items or prayers, whatever it was to help the cause, that is so greatly appreciated. You'll never know how impactful that is. People can continue to donate or support. I haven't done a Rusty video in 2 or 3 weeks now. I've just been busy at holidays and stuff. I'm getting back into it. I did start a GoFundMe, so if people wanted to financially donate directly to that, they can. I need to re-upload that link to future videos because it's only connected to a handful of those videos. But there are other causes. You don't have to donate directly to me or to the thing I'm putting out there, which is one of many. But yes, they can. And if someone's hearing this and they're like, I have some stuff that I don't care about, it's not worth anything to me, or I would rather that go, email us. Email me at the slickwebmedia@gmail.com. That's the one that goes through all the YouTube stuff. Or you can email us at this podcast, whatsoldpodcast@gmail.com. And I'll communicate with you via email and get you the information that you need. But it's going to be needed still for years.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I was driving through Swannanoa on my way home, and it still looks like bombs have been dropped everywhere.
Horrible.
There are still upside down vehicles on the side of the road. There's just still acres and acres of just land that's tossed up with mud and just debris littering it everywhere. And people out there are like, how haven't they cleaned that up yet? You don't understand the massive amount of stuff that's here. They've already gotten rid of over 100,000 cubic tons of debris. And if you drive around, it's like they haven't even touched the place yet. So that's just shows you how much is here. So yes, it's still a need. And as long as we have people like you, Mary, who are tuned in some way and have compassion for people who are in difficult circumstances, then I know we'll make it through. And by the way, Mary, you can still settle here. in this area if you want to someday. And you know what?
Yeah, we
There's
would
probably
love
going
for
to
her
be
come
some.
back.
There's probably going to be some cheap land here before too long as well.
Well,
Unfortunately,
I've been saying to my daughter for a year or two, like, hey, when you get out of college, we should, Asheville. So yeah, because we have lots of fun memories, going down Sliding Rock, hitting
Yeah.
your tailbone, being
Oh, so
crippled
good.
for a couple months. Oh my God.
We
Yeah,
live
we
in
have fun.
paradise, Mary. We live in paradise for sure.
I love
listen,
it.
Oregon is beautiful too.
Or
I haven't.
I live there. I know it's beautiful, but it's not Asheville. I'm just
True.
going to say
Well,
it's not
you know.
Asheville. All right, we've got one last thing. We are a show about what sold. Now, Matt is off the hook this week because we have our first. I'm going to call you because you're our first guest. You are our super cousin. You are a super cousin. We're all
A
cousins,
super cousin.
but you're a super cousin,
that's
Mary.
so sweet.
Your first super cousin on the show.
Fantastic.
So I want to know if you could remember, and this could be a challenge for you. What was the last item you sold on eBay before you shut your store down? Doesn't matter what it is. Just do you remember what it was?
Yeah. I want to say it was one of two things. One was a bracelet that I found, and I don't recall the brand, but I found it and it was like 50 cents. And I was like, what's this? And then I researched it and it was like $400.
Nice.
And I
Wow.
think that's the thing that is almost that talk about wins. When you get wins like that, that's what propels you to continue working on the business. But that was something. And then my daughter River, her eBay store was shoes. And let me tell you, to this point about going downstairs and cleaning those shoes and boom, selling. And she found a random pair of I want to say maybe Kobe Bryant's shoes. That was crazy. That was huge for her. So she sold it, bought her first guitar.
And does she still have
Man.
does she still do an eBay store?
She does not. So she's a college student now.
But we'll say this
More
about
important
it, is
things.
that, yeah, well, but you know what's always there in the background? If you, just
100%.
getting the experience, I love that you did that. It's what we're working on with our daughter. Is same thing. It's like, hey, understand that you don't have to do this forever, but it gives you a good, practice and a good sort of platform for doing it. I'm a big believer in, I believe boys get a lot of anyway, but for girls just to have that courage to step out and do that is so huge. So I want to thank you personally because you made young River out in the world is doing something amazing. And I'm sure as she invents new chemical compounds to save the world, that will be great. Any last words for us, Mary, before we head out?
Well, thank you for making me a super cousin. And it's kind of so fun to be able to talk to you. And obviously, Matt, to speak with you, I was kind of like, yeah, and, I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to go for it. And also you're listening because you're part of this community. So how can you reach out to Matt and think about contributing? What do you have? What do you have around? What can you do to make an impact for somebody who's been supporting you because you've been watching?
Yeah, that's a great word. I'm going to put in all the show notes, all Mary's details. So if anybody's interested, look at the podcast or the YouTube, and then I will put all that in there so that we have that stuff.
Mary, can
Matt?
you one more time tell us the name of your business and the name of your podcast?
Yeah. So my business is Bold Life and Biz. My podcast is Midlife, Bold Life. And you can find me also over on the Insta, Mary Bicknell, Be Bold. And I'm going to be breathing life back into my YouTube channel. Now that I have a child off at college, I have a little more time. And so that's exciting, just under Mary Bicknell. And so in there, you're going to get the mindset tips, the sales tips, the stuff that's going to make an impact on you having a big, bold life and biz.
Last question.
That's awesome.
Mary, do you collect anything? Do you have anything that you're particularly personally interested in?
I used to collect things, and as a empty nester, I'm downsizing. But I used to collect black cats in real life and Halloween black cats. But I'm really working hard now just to collect memories of good hikes.
Oh, that's bold. That's bold. That's a great way to take us out. There are lots
Very
of good
cool.
hikes here, Mary. So when you
I
move
know.
back,
Yeah,
we're
let us
ready
know.
for you.
Let us
Anyway,
know. We'll
we will
go on
be
a hike.
back with. Yeah, absolutely. And next week we'll be back with a brand new show. This show will be dropping in the next week or two. But otherwise, everybody have a great week. We'll be back with you a new show very soon. Take care.